to everyone for coming to the book launch.
Yeah, water. Do we allow to put wine in
Yeah,
here?
just a little taste.
No, no, I'm
First,
good.
first one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So John, have for 30 minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
We're going to get started. So please get a drink, order dinner, find your seat. Uh, Thank you very much for coming to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand. My name is Phil Robertson. I'm an FCCT board member and occasional collaborator with these folks over here, Am and Steve Sandford, who are here to launch their new book, Witness to Genocide, Chasing the Rohingya Crisis in Southeast Asia. That book is actually on sale at the front, so if you're interested in buying that, you can do so. And I'm sure you can get Steve and Em to sign your copy as well. So, in Western Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, the Rohingya Muslim population has faced more than 60 years of segregation and persecution at the hands of successive military regimes that seem determined to eliminate them by any means possible from the country. And this is the story that Steve Sandford, who's a Canadian photojournalist, and his wife and producer, Am Sandford, started an effort to document what was going on. They were been working for many different news agencies and organizations, documenting what has happened to the Rohingya, the ill treatment, the exploitation they faced. And you'll see some of the photos in one of their pieces. We're going to see a film that they've done as well. But this newly published book that has just come out actually documents their efforts to show what was happening to the Rohingya. So you're taken from the period of 2012 after the attacks in Sittwe and other parts of central and southern Rakhine state against the Rohingya, deals with the whole crisis of the boat people, particularly connected to the human trafficking camps that were seen on the Thai-Malaysia border, and also the boats that were floating away the Andaman. Many of you all have, I think, been involved in some of these events or documenting them, reporting on them, or advocating for governments to do something to help the Rohingya. So, without further ado, we're going to hear the story of these two intrepid journalists chasing what was one of the biggest ongoing tragedies in Southeast Asia. What has happened to the Rohingya, both in their homeland, in Rakhine State, as well as when they've been forced to flee out into Southeast Asia via boats and overland. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve and Am, and please take a look at the book and enjoy the evening.
Thank you, Kun Phil. And thanks everyone for coming to hear our experience reporting the Rohingya crisis tonight. I just want to share our journey trying to understand who the Rohingya people are, where they call home, and how they have been forced to leave their land, where they want to go, and what has happened to them along the journey. I will speak on behalf of you as well. We first learned the name Rohingya in 2009. Before that, we experienced Muslim migrants living in the Islamic community in Mesot, a border town opposite Myanmar's Myawaddy. We were covering a child labor and trafficking story, where the trafficking were forcing the young people into slave labor in Thailand and taking many of the children to work on the street of Bangkok. So this sparked our interest in the problems connected to the traffickers. In January 2009, after we saw the photo in the South China Morning Post showing the boat people being held on Got Sai Dang, we went to Ranong and started to cover the story and see what was going on. And at that time, we had no contacts at all to the Rohingya Muslim minority group. So we had to talk to a lot of people in Ranong And then the people we were met, they're very kind, and many of them seem to have similar connection to me. So for example, when we first met the village chief in Got Ta Krut. Got Ta Krut is just between Got Song and between Thai-Myanmar border on Andaman Sea. So I found out that he was actually from Chiang Rai. He's a Muslim from Chiang Rai. And then he just lived in Got Ta Krut, and we speak the same dialect as where I come from, Chiang Mai. So he enjoyed speaking to me and then start to tell the truth. It come out, for what happened. So I just have no idea at all. So he start to tell us, and we filming, and then he helping us to connect it with the other people who could help us if they spot on the boat it come to the Thai waters. So this led us to our first experience to covering the Rohingya boat crisis. The first picture that we saw of them were brutal, and we will never forget the terrible condition that they were in. During the reporting, we met a very special lady who was working and helping the Rohingya people situation, and she is with us tonight, Chris Lewa. So Chris Lewa helped us better understand the struggle of the Rohingya people and connected with groups that were helping the Rohingya. So we met the Rohingya Burmese. They call Burmese Rohingya Association of Thailand, or BLAD. So at that organization, back then they're based in Mesot. So the town that Steve and I often travel to covering the current conflict. So we met Muhammad Nosim, our Rohingya human rights advocate. He is joining us tonight with his friend. Yeah. So he's been through a lot of suffering himself and fled the country to Thailand, to the better place, I hope. Yeah. Okay. So since we have been covering the Rohingya situation in our region, helping expose the overall problems through the many smaller incidents. So while covering the crisis, Steve and I were fortunate enough to meet with the Rohingya family that managed to escape the area and resettle in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So the importance of understanding the big picture is by looking at the smaller one, where individual lives are affected by the ongoing atrocity being committed by the Burma army. So sometimes it is just as simple as that. So a part of the story that was very personal to us was the Rohingya husband and father, Kobir, who was desperately trying to confirm that his wife and children were alive. A construction manager that we met in Langkawi early in 2014 when we are covering another part of the story on the Thai-Malaysian border. So he gave my contact to Kobe and some Rohingya people who fled years ago, who want to, try to bring their loved one come to join with them. So Kobe kept my number until when he heard about the boat is abandoned in the Andaman Sea. So he called me by using the guy who can speak English.
What year was that?
So in year 2015. So then. So that's why we start to learn about the family. So his message is what's clear and sounds very personal. It motivates us to dig further, which we wrote about it in our book. It's hard to describe the feeling, how we felt when the people on the boat called my number because of Chris Leva had given it to them. The boat people who've been abandoned, no food, no water, many people dying from the suffer. So then they called my number, and then we just go to talk to the Thai officer, try to find and spot the boat. And then we had the Rohingya translator with us, because without him, we cannot communicate at all what's happening. So that we could communicate better with the Rohingya on the green boat. That's quite it's a big event in the world. So then they call us, asking us to please find their boat and give them food and water. So this happened just minutes after the Navy announced that it had found the green boat. So So after we managed to rent a boat and race out to where the trafficking vessel was, thank you for AFP, and sharing the boat, because the cost of the boat very expensive at that time. So then we just rent the boat and go out to find them. And we have, after we spot the boat, we have our translator, Sameh Ula, call out for Kobe's wife. And suddenly, someone very tiny, very weakness, and stood up. And then she just responded our call in the Rohingya dialect. And we felt great relief that we could, give the good news to her husband. So then, and after all the filming and interview with them, we shouting across the boat. So then we just call the Kobe husband, just give him a good news. We found your wife, they are alive. And that's, So at least we feel very happy that our small mission, that complete. So from there, we were fortunate to be able to follow up on their experience, including a reunion with them a year later in Malaysia, where they had settled and granted the refugee status. But also Kobe and his family connected us with other family members in Mongdo who were forced to flee the country. So while we were covering the genocide in 2017, so we called them, we're gonna meet them after Kofi Annan's press conference done, right? But I called in the morning, so they told me we can't stay because no home left, gone. You have to find us in Cox's Bazar, meet us there. So then 8 months later, we just go to visit them in Cox's Bazar. So this is our story with them, and we still connecting with all of them. We just called them earlier with our help from our Rohingya friend to communicate. They are in Kutupalong and still there, and they have members of family, a twin baby, and some of them have passed away. So this is just small thing that we connecting, but I know this millions of Rohingya still struggle in their life. So I wish I could say that it's over, but in fact, this attack on the Rohingya population that remain in Myanmar is now getting much worse. Yeah, this is all from me tonight. So
Right.
Your turn.
So as
Thank you. Thank you, Ha.
First, thanks to everyone who's come to the book launch. I see a lot of familiar faces in the crowd who have worked tirelessly to bring the light the struggle that the people in Myanmar are currently facing. As Am has mentioned, and most people have heard, the situation in Myanmar has become a living hell for most of the people within the country, as major battles between the increasingly desperate Burmese junta against ethnic armed groups and People's Defense Forces takes their toll. With the ongoing attacks by Burma's junta forces against all civilians in Myanmar, we believe it's increasingly important for the Burmese generals who are responsible for the past and present atrocities to be held to account. We can call it ethnic cleansing, war crimes, or genocide. It adds up to horrendous actions perpetrated by those in power that need to be prosecuted under international law, in our opinion. Initially, Am and I had planned to have this book finished shortly after the Gambia lodged an application initiating the case of genocide with the International Court of Justice against Myanmar in 2019. Unfortunately, the COVID lockdown in 2020, followed by the Burmese army coup a year later, slowed the process down a bit. However, it appears that the support for the Gambia's genocide case has grown. 7 countries, including France, Germany, the UK, Denmark, the Netherlands, the Maldives, and Canada, have joined in support of the Gambia's actions, which from the outset included a motion to order the junta to protect the Rohingya population and cease acts of genocide. And that's not happening, we can see that. But things have gone from bad to worse, with reports the Rohingya people are now facing increased attacks, not only by the Burmese forces, but also by the Arakan army, an ethnic armed group fighting against the junta as well. So it's very, very complicated. To make matters worse, the junta is now forcibly conscripting young men to fight alongside the same army that is killing its civilians, including the Rohingya people. It's utter madness. It's very hard to believe and comprehend right now. It's become an increasingly murky picture as more people are being driven from their homes, which are then burnt to the ground by military forces again and again. I say that because of a trip to Sitwe in October 2012, after the second round of sectarian violence with the Rohingya population being targeted by security forces and militia groups. I visited several Muslim communities in the slums where I saw blocks and blocks of Muslim property burnt to the ground while nearby Buddhist structures remained intact. At that time, satellite images provided by Human Rights Watch also revealed massive destruction of houses and property in an ethnic Kaman Muslim area of the southern coast town of Chokpu, which interestingly enough was converted into a special economic zone. Less than a year later, in July 2013, the Myanmar government created a disaster management law, which states that it oversees reconstruction in areas damaged by disaster and conflict. The law basically enabled the government to confiscate property in which in many cases was previously owned by Rohingya residents. You know, it's not too hard to figure out. The Burmese researchers with the Shui gas movement noted in 2013 report that the Myanmar government, i.e. a small group of the ruling elite and their families, was predicted to make $54 billion from oil and gas pipelines in a deal with PetroChina that it spans a 30-year period. The lines running from Ramri Island in Rakhine State to deliver petrol from the offshore Shui gas fields in the Bay of Bengal and crude oil shipped in from the Middle East would help reduce costs and shorten the shipping time. But at what price for the civilian population? In addition to the displacement and resettlement of the people to what's been described as an open-air prison, Am and I saw the human cost. Excuse me. The human cost of the attacks, and they were devastating. It was gut-wrenching interviewing men, women, and children who had escaped the Tatmadaw so-called clearance operation, crossing the Naf River to Bangladesh. Soldiers gang raping young women, babies being thrown into fires, and family members being forced to watch their loved ones tortured and murdered in front of them. This is some of the testimonies that we're hearing from the people that we are talking to. It's difficult to comprehend how these atrocities could be committed by human beings, but dehumanizing the ethnic minorities through hate speech, misinformation, and lies seem to be working. We got a brief glimpse of this when we interviewed Burmese Buddhist monk Ashin Weratu at his Mandalay temple at the end of Buddhist Lent in 2015. The leader of the anti-Muslim 969 movement was soft-spoken and friendly when we first met him, but as the topic turned to the Rohingya people, he began to raise his voice. He said, "If we accept Rohingya, then they will become an ethnic group in Myanmar automatically. But as a matter of fact, they're not people from our country. They are migrants and expand by breeding their tribe in our country." His words describing this group as if they were savages or animals. Weratu's ongoing hate speech attributed to widespread violence through his sermons and Facebook messages leading up to the 2017 Army clearance operation. His train of thought reminded me of a Burmese officer in Mungdaw that we met during a 36-hour press tour in 2017. Responding to accusations of the Burmese military committing atrocities, including rape, Colonel Fontin said, "Where is the proof? Look at these women who are making these claims," he said, referring to hundreds of refugees who recounted horrific stories about of abuse by Burmese soldiers. "These women are claiming they were raped, but look at their appearance. Do you think they are attractive enough to be raped?" I felt that the colonel's remarks reflected the cold-blooded mindset that had been entrenched in junta forces, which made it easier to drive the civilian population from their homes and burn their villages without a shred of guilt. Despite denials by the army of committing such crimes, multiple investigations supported by eyewitness testimonies for various human rights groups have proved otherwise. And during the tail end of a government-sponsored trip that we were on in 2017, a group of Burmese journalists and foreign journalists as well as myself witnessed it firsthand. On the way back to town after a day of visiting vacant, burnt remains of villages in the countryside, we spotted the bright orange flames in a burning hamlet. Excuse me. After getting the drivers to stop, the press group descended on the Rohingya village of Gadu Zera. We were passing by jugs of diesel and stolen goods on the footpaths. Rakhine Buddhist militia forces, carrying machetes, swords, and slingshots, were caught red-handed, making a quick exit from the crime scene, under the supervision of the border guard forces who were standing by and watching this unfold. They weren't doing anything. One of them even explained to a reporter, Heather Knudsen, she's a Kachin reporter that's working at the time for AEP, I believe. The villager said he'd been ordered to evict the villagers from their homes before the militia forces torched it and stole anything they could get their hands on, including the cattle. I think there's a picture here. It was flashing by. An overhead drone shot, I saw them. They're doing some cattle rustling, and they were driving right by the border guard forces. So it was pretty clear. GPS data and local contacts confirmed that militia forces had cleared the village earlier that day, as Chris might have remembered, before, and had just begun the arson attacks when we arrived. It was a nightmare that's been repeated across the country again and again, driving more than 750,000 men, women, and children across the border to Bangladesh. Sadly, the world seems to have forgotten about this vicious cycle of atrocities that took place, as a new round of atrocities are being committed in the region again. In conclusion, we'd like to thank the many experts, activists, journalists, and media workers that we've collaborated with over the course of our journey, one that has yet to finish, as we wait for the beginning of an important trial at the ICJ, should it happen, and the end to the incessant atrocities being committed in Myanmar on the civilian population. Special thanks to Jim Pollard. I don't know if he's here or not. No, he's not. He's always late. Yeah. Okay. Who for his fine editing skills and helping to get the book out. Yeah. But cheers. Thanks.
Thank you. So now we would like to show you guys some video, the timeline from our book. Our book 230 pages, but then we just have everything or record on the video. So 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So start from 2009.
Fantastic. Okay. So we're gonna see a video.
Is there a video?
Yeah, we have the video.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Thanks for that.
Yeah. The video more
Yeah, so this is a chronological order of the story as it unfolds. Sorry about that, a slight sound problem with the edit.
Rakhine ya mai vai na zulum guru ala ame ara su lege kan dai kesi kari kara silam
That is going to manage the process to determine how it proceeds.
For my personal security and for all we are against people of minority group in Bukit Maudo living.
Okay. Can we have the lights back on, please?
Okay. Yeah. So it's quite a long journey. 8 years.
Yeah, sorry
Even
about too much of that sad
watching
music.
again, I just
Yeah.
feel like very deeply sad.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, every step of the way, I'm like, oh, I remember when that was happening. I remember when this was happening.
Right.
The green boat was on the front page of the New York Times, worldwide headline that the green boat was found. That was part of the beginning of the real boat people crisis, you know, where we had, you know, literally dozens of boats floating around in the Indian and Andaman Ocean, people trying to track down where they are and bring them to shore. Because everything was stalled, everything was closed because of course, the Thailand investigation of the trafficking camps.
Yeah.
And all the people that had come through Thailand who'd gotten on boats before Thailand shut down were then stuck at sea. And yeah, really quite something. We have a microphone in the back, so if people have questions, you can ask the authors about their experience or any of the issues or events that they've covered over the years about the Rohingya. I wanted to start with actually a very obvious question. You're going to continue reporting on this. What's next? I mean, you know, going back to Bangladesh or trying to get into Rakhine State, or how are you planning to proceed and continue this reporting?
Yeah, I guess it's pretty difficult to get into Rakhine State at the moment, but there's always the possibility to go over to Bangladesh and talk to the recent arrivals once more. I think that would be possible. I don't know, what do you think, Am?
Yeah, with Bangladesh at the Kutapalong camp and in Cox's Bazar, so they really want us to go back to follow, to visit the family. They keep calling me all the time right now since I reached out to them. So we definitely gonna go back to Bangladesh again. So now we hope this new, the government or the security must be, we have to challenge ourselves by going like give something to want to visit the family in Kutapalong camp. So we have to get some tourist visa. So we will definitely have to go. We think about sometime during Christmas because that time many news broadcast, they want some good story. So I think this is a good time to go and then to visit the family on the green boat from Malaysia as well. Yeah, and now our good friend gonna work in Malaysia, so we will visit them often. Yeah, yeah. So in Myanmar, I don't think so.
No.
Right now we wrote the book. I don't think we can go back. Yeah. Yeah. So.
What I mean, you all have been covering this, as you said, covering the many big cases and small all along, going through this process. What made you decide that you had to put it into a book?
Well, I think that it got to the point where this trial has been delayed for so long, and there are so many tragic events going on in other parts of the world at the moment. Actually, I was discussing with a good friend last night about this new criminal charge. It's called atrocity crimes, and I believe it came out a few years ago in the light of the atrocities that are happening in the Ukraine. And this atrocities crime basically covers ethnic cleansing, crimes against humanity, I believe, and genocide. And it seems to be a quicker route to getting the trial started. And I'm not sure if there can be different charges laid at this point, but it seems to be expediting.
I don't think so at this point. I mean, but the big question, I think, is also that there's still an ongoing international criminal court investigation separate from the International Court of Justice.
Right.
And the International Criminal Court is exercising jurisdiction because Bangladesh is signatory of the International Criminal Court, the Rome Statute that established that, but Burma is not.
Right.
So they were using that sort of backdoor, which has actually been allowed by the court to do that. But, you know, these international court proceedings, you know, they just disappear for period of time. You have no idea how far they are along, you know, when something's going to happen, whether anything's going to happen. So,
and
there's a lot.
I'm still trying to understand how the initial, after the initial case was brought about, and then there was a motion a few months later that the Rohingya needed to be protected, and that no, you know,
Oh, yeah,
no
the
war crimes.
the temporary orders, yeah.
Exactly. So I don't know how that's not working out, but
That, I don't
pretty
know either.
discouraging.
Well, I mean, the problem is that there's not much access to those areas. So,
Yeah.
do
Access.
you have a question? Please, please approach the mic. Just introduce yourself.
Yeah.
My name is Joe Arden. I'm a club member. I had two unrelated, but you touched on one of them. First, to the best of your knowledge, about how many ethnic Rohingya are now in Myanmar versus Bangladesh versus Thailand versus Malaysia versus Indonesia? If you were going to make an estimate, how would you say that they are scattered around the world right now, particularly here in Southeast Asia?
Okay.
Very good question.
So we have our
I think we'd have to get some.
friend who can give this answer.
I can also
Fast.
add something.
Okay.
I mean, right now, I think there are actually more Rohingya in Bangladesh now than in Myanmar. It's
Yes,
about,
that's true.
What is it? 1.1 million in the camps. There's an estimate of about 600,000 Rohingya who are mostly IDPs who are still in Rakhine state.
I'm sorry, go over that again, please. Say it again. About 1 million and something in
about
Bangladesh.
1.1.
1.1 million in Bangladesh.
Yes.
In the refugee camps. Then approximately 600,000 is the last figure I saw of Rohingya who are in Rakhine state and who are mostly displaced. They're in internally displaced persons camps, which have been described as being almost like apartheid. You know, just a horrific situation. And you saw some of the video from that. There's probably, I don't know, a couple thousand, maybe up to 8 to 10,000 in other parts of Myanmar, primarily in Yangon. Malaysia has approximately, I would say, 150 to 200,000. In Thailand, you're probably talking a couple thousand, not a lot, because most of the people don't stay here, but they go to Malaysia. And the same is true in Indonesia, although Indonesia has got probably more Rohingya than Thailand, I think, at this point.
My second question was going to be, you referred in your address, your talk, to the International Court of Justice. I was going to then ask about the International Criminal Court, but you brought up, Bill, the International Criminal Court. Would you go over again what the status is with regard to the ICC?
Okay, so with the International Criminal Court, as I mentioned, the issue of jurisdiction was the first barrier. And what that meant was that since Myanmar is not a signatory of the Rome Statute, therefore they were not technically bound by the International Criminal Court. However, it was decided that, in fact, because many of these Rohingya had fled to Bangladesh, that the crimes that were committed connected to forcing them to flee to Bangladesh could be covered by the fact that Bangladesh is a member of the International Criminal Court, that it is a signatory of the Rome Statute. And so there was a jurisdictional fight back and forth where Myanmar said you can't do that, and you know, the court finally decided that you could. And interestingly, Bangladesh was supporting that, in part because Bangladesh wants to do anything they can to put the pressure on the Burmese government to take the Rohingya back. You know, there's that whole dynamic going on there. But now we don't know where it is in the International Criminal Court. I mean, I haven't seen any information that's come out recently about where the investigation is, but there has not been, you know, any sort of formal charges brought against anyone. You know, it's still sort of disappeared into the machinery of the court, which I presume is continuing to investigate. But there was, in fact, International Criminal Court officials who did go and interview people in the refugee camps in Bangladesh. But again, we haven't heard anything further.
But the International Court, again, correct me, although Myanmar is not a signature, for example, neither is Israel. The International Court can take action against individuals within a state that is not a member state, even if the member state doesn't recognize them, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, but the thing is, I mean, it does charge individuals.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is the difference between the ICJ and the court. But I mean, again, at the end of the day, they've actually done a fairly innovative effort to have jurisdiction, or at least partial jurisdiction, on what has happened to the Rohingya. But again, we just have not heard where they are in that process, and whether the investigation is still ongoing. I assume it is. How far it's gotten, we just don't know. Yeah.
So I just add a little bit. For us, we are journalists, so we cover, investigate what we can help for any international organization, for some the International Justice Court. Some of organizations ask us to get some evidence, so then they can do on their process. So we have applied, give them some footage that we have from anything that they can work and useful for their case. And even the Thai government as well, sometimes when we go to Malaysia, some place that they lack of access, so we provide footage to other organizations that can use our footage, for the find solution, for this. So our job will continue at the investigate. Yeah.
Evidence.
Please introduce yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Aungji. I'm from Rangoon. So I'm a Rohingya. So I grew up at Rangoon. So I'm a candidate for 2020 general election at Myanmar. So I fled from that country after coup. So because of life danger, So first of all, thank you for Steve and Am for having to us. So two things. One is a question, and one is a message to our community. So one thing is this is related with Rohingya, with everybody, international country or organization or everybody. Because of that video is perfect, this is past. Still, right now, we are ongoing genocide. Till today, till yesterday, at Burma, at Mondo, at Budidong, at all the time happen. So the government, the coup government, the military, and the Rakhine army, they are pretend to fighting each other and they kill we Rohingya. All the time. We don't have any solution. Just asking to international organization and any country related with this Rohingya conflict. Just show us the way. What is the solution for us? We'll do. We are just stuck. We don't reach any goal, anything. We can't happen anything. We can't do anything. So this is an international organization and country. Second thing is, we Rohingya need to make solution ourselves. Need unity and be united. If not, we will be disappear soon. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Aungji. Thank you very much for come tonight. And then, we just thanks for Muhammad Nasim too. You helping us a lot. So right now I can say your second generation maybe, because in your generation I don't think we can hear any solution. But your son, 11 years old son, he have to flee Yangon 3 years ago after the problem. So no place, and if they continue to stay, God knows what's gonna happen. So maybe young generation like yourself, and also Muhammad Nasim, in his generation, 35 years he been fighting for Rohingya justice in Thailand, but nothing at all that he can see. He not give up, but his young generation, his daughter, gonna graduate soon in Thailand. So they will continue to find some solution and try to work with Thai people or any organization, international people, work together. That's why they all come here tonight to find some, and even a small connection that can guide them, show them the life where they're gonna go. Otherwise, they just don't know what to do. Also your friend, your family.
I think that also foreign investors should make responsible decisions, and I think there needs to be proper assessments done, and I think that if there's more international pressure on those aspects to change what the government, or it's not even the government, it's the junta forces that have taken over the country, and I think that I think this has to be looked at, because without that, there's not going to be any pressure on the current junta to change. And without any change, I don't see anything happening except more negative effects on the population across the country. I don't know what else.
Yeah, and then the situation of the boat people still here, still coming, but we just not do anything right now because not come to Thai water. They all push out. So I'm live in Krabi, the southern. So I'm close to the ISOC people because we. When they heard anything, they want to confirm with me. So I confirm by get some, helping from NGO. So like I try to share and be in the middle, sharing the information for them, make sure the boat are safe to their destination. Or if the boat are sunk or something happened to them, so I will exchange information between our friends who are NGO in Malaysia and also with some good Thai security who Muslim and they want to help people on the boat. It's still coming, and this next season start now, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. That is an issue that the boats are continuing to come. They now won't come to Thailand because they know if they land in Thailand, they'll be arrested and put in immigration detention. There's still probably over several hundred Rohingya who are still being sort of indefinitely held in immigration detention in Thailand, in part because they can't be sent back to Myanmar, because the government of Myanmar won't recognize them as their nationals. They say that these are not our citizens, therefore we don't want them. And so they're just sort of stuck. But we've also seen recently, earlier this year, increased violence in Aceh against Rohingya boat people who have arrived there. And previously, Aceh was the only good news in the region. It used to be that if Rohingya got to Aceh, they'd be generally well received. They'd be able to rest, get their health back. And then a lot of times they would go to Malaysia. They would slip across the straits into Malaysia. But now, for whatever reason, there's been hate speech that's been stirred up against the Rohingya and anybody who helping them, including UNHCR. And I expect that Aceh is going to be increasingly hostile to new arrivals, which is going to be a problem because then where are they going to go? Malaysia has pushed them back. Malaysia doesn't want more. Indonesia doesn't want them. Thailand won't let them land. Where are they going to go? And the pressures continue to build in northern Rakhine State and in Bangladesh for people trying to get out. So,
yeah, well, it seems to be ongoing, and now with the confusion of the conscription, I think that there's a lot of parties involved that are confused, and I could definitely see war crimes occurring and a lot of mistakes happening. I believe there's an increase in traffickers on the Naf River going to Bangladesh now, and they're charging, I don't know, 125, 150 bucks a head, something like that. And
just across the river.
Just across the river.
Yeah. So then.
And that was similar to the 2017. They were charging 125 bucks a person for some of these people to get across the river, the richer families.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
I don't know.
Hi, my name is Brad Adams. I just want to point out that when we saw, and by the way, Am and Steve, thank you. Your book's fantastic. Your work's amazing, and I really respect everything you've done for many years. Since we're standing in Thailand, it's worth pointing out that the Thai authorities who push people out are accessories to crimes. So what they've done isn't just a bad thing. It's not just a political decision. They're actually accessories to international crimes. So we have crimes against humanity. We have other lesser crimes, but still are considered crimes under the Rome Statute. And those officials who were involved in that are responsible for criminal acts and could be charged in The Hague. And I think Thai officials and Malaysian officials and Indonesian officials and Bangladeshi officials who often lie about how generous they should be made aware of that, and we should all be trying to remind them of that, and including future acts, because this will happen again and again and again. And they need to understand that they are committing crimes and they can be held accountable. And they should not think that these are just political decisions, national sovereignty decisions. They're actually criminal acts. I just spent the last week in Bangladesh, and I just want to say that I think there's a slim possibility of some progress. We now have a Nobel Peace Prize winner who is in charge of Bangladesh, unlike another Nobel Peace Prize winner who turned out to be a bigot and Islamophobe. This is a genuine activist who's a human rights activist who has put human rights at the heart of his program because of the crimes that were committed by Sheikh Hasina. The government is full of all of our friends, people that who've worked in Bangladesh for years have seen as allies. They're both human rights activists themselves, or adjacent to the human rights community. And this would be a really important time for governments to engage with the Bangladeshi authorities and put money on the table. Let's start with the humanitarian situation. The Bangladeshi authorities have been saying for 15 years since I first was talking to them about the Rohingya problem in the late 2000s, that they, we just have to call their bluff on this. They do not think that a lot of money should go into the camps because the communities around the camps are very poor themselves, and there will be a lot of resentment in the communities if the people in the camps are getting more than the communities. In 2009, with Sheikh Hasina, we, Human Rights Watch, I was with them now as Phil was, put a proposal in front of the Bangladeshi government that was funded by donors, put $30 million on the table for the camps and $10 million for the local community, and Sheikh Hasina refused that after saying that if you put money on the table, we'll accept it. So she refused the whole package. But I think this government could be persuaded to accept something like that. So that's worth pursuing. Putting money on the table both for the Rohingya and for the community around the camps. I think that's a proposal that would get a fair hearing right now. The current Bangladeshi government also is basically in a position where they cannot welcome arrivals, but they're turning a blind eye to them right now. And that's good, and that's the way it should continue. But the new arrivals are putting more pressure on the local community. There's no doubt about that. Very, very poor community is having a hard time absorbing new arrivals. And so, again, for different reasons but the same outcome, there needs to be re-engagement by the donor community. And I think this is a window of opportunity that may shut pretty quickly because Bangladesh is now having their post-dictator kind of spring and opening where everything is on the table. But that will not last. So to the extent that you're journalists or you're diplomats, I don't know who's here, to the extent that you have any influence, I think this is an opportunity that hasn't been there for a long time. And at least should be tested. And Muhammad Yunus, as much as he has a halo over his head, he has to do the right thing. And if he doesn't do the right thing, he should be called out, just like any other leader. Last thing I want to say is that in terms of solutions, questions been asked about ICC and ICJ. We all know what the solutions are. I mean, there's just really no mystery about what the solutions are. It's just a matter of governments doing the right thing. Now, you could say that sanctions don't work, but I was just talking to somebody at my table. If the Singaporean government cut off oil supplies to the regime, it would not last very long. And there are other pressure points. And I just want to say, we should not give up on making these arguments. We might feel like we've made them over and over again and we haven't succeeded. But 2 months ago, Sheikh Hasina was a dictator who was untouchable. Nobody thought that could change. So, when politics are involved, things can change. And so let's just all keep pushing on these ideas.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, and thank you for the work that we have been done for 8 years. If without support from Human Rights Watch, 45 Rights, and many other rights groups and the NGO, we will not be here today. So you all, support each other, and we can continue support each other again. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Tom. Thank you for all your work. It's a very, very amazing work. On the question of accountability and what we can do, lobbying with the ICC and the ICJ, the barriers to that, I wonder if more could be done to hold accountable, specifically American companies such as Facebook, in regards to the spread of hate speech. And you mentioned in Aceh, this is now a continuing problem with the increased speed, especially of information, algorithms. What more could be done to hold accountable? I remember reading about like a lawsuit towards Facebook for 150 million by a Rohingya refugee group. I wonder if more could be done by the US government specifically and international organizations to hold accountable these social media companies, because they are complicit within this.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I know that the Facebook case it brought up a big problem, and I've been looking on the social media sites recently, and there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think it's a glaring problem that needs to be addressed. I think that even everything from photos out of context from years ago that I've seen posted on from reports in 2017, dead bodies, that sort of thing. So I think that I'm not sure how these organizations could be held to account. It seems that Twitter, for example, it's off the boards. It's not really, I don't know. It doesn't seem to be running under any regulations at all. I'm not really familiar with this stuff too much. What about you, Phil? What do you think?
Well, I think there is this ongoing case against Facebook. I think to be honest, there is quite clearly. As we saw, the instigation of hate speech using Facebook in Burma is like a test. It is the test case. It is the case that actually, where it was happening, Facebook knew about it, and did not have either the interest nor the staff or others to deal with it, and they just let it go. And the other bottom line was that Myanmar is a faraway market. It's not one of their major financial interests. Yeah. The whole case study of what happened, did actually end up being reported all the way up to Mark Zuckerberg. But it's unclear what, if anything, Facebook has done, except they perhaps modified some guidelines and other things like that. So I think that the real way to get at these companies is cost them money and hurt their reputation. And it's quite clear that Facebook's reputation took a knock. But as we move away from that period of time, 2014, 2015, 2016, when all this was happening, it's pretty clear also that the drumbeat for accountability for these companies is sort of fading. And I would love to see the U.S. government or the European Union and others take them on, but they're taking them on other issues like privacy issues rather than what was done using this platform to the Rohingya. And I'm sure that there are other instances around the world where Facebook, again, has been used as some sort of a communication channel for inciting violence against certain groups of people. I'm not sure what all the cases are, but I bet it would be a very interesting book to write. If someone had an interest on the confluence of technology and human rights, it would be a fascinating book to write and to read.
And it's getting increasingly difficult, I guess, with AI technology, changing every day. And like I said, we're seeing a lot. On the one side, the modern technology is enabling people on the ground to be able to film these activities, these atrocities, as you could say, and there is a benefit to that. But at the same time, they're going to be posting everything. I remember when the coup started, and I was in Mesot with Am. We were doing a story after the coup, and we saw a picture of this it looked like an Asian man on the ground. He had his limbs cut off, and it was just atrocious. It really angered me, and about a half an hour later, after I calmed down, I checked the image on one of these tin eye, I think it's called, and it was actually a photo from the Mexican cartel torturing somebody in Mexico. But you know, it was totally out of context, but you know, it affected me, and I had an interview at that time with the Karen leader, and it's very, very toxic, and I don't know how that's going to be prevented, because there's so much of this technology out there right now.
Yeah.
It's going to be a challenge.
I think with previous cases, it was that eventually it would be revealed that, you know, this was not what we thought it was, whereas with AI images, it's increasingly difficult, and they say, okay, well, we can detect it, but by the time it's detected, the hate is already spread, and people are already grabbing their pitchforks and so on. Second part I would ask would be, on the more operational side, since you don't have access to the Rakhine state as a result of publishing and so on, do you find that social media is still a viable option for kind of understanding what's happening on the ground right now?
Yeah.
Or is the internet essentially still viable? Because I know in the case of like Manipur, the chief minister there, in the case of their ethnic unrest recently, just cut the Wi-Fi and all the internet. I'm wondering if there's still access to free flow of info in Rakhine State.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still able now to talk to some of the, you know, the family that we helped that are in Kutupalong camp in Bangladesh. Now in Myanmar, I think a lot of more of the communications have been cut. At the same time, it's really hard to verify, I think, for any journalist or activist or any group that's trying to investigate, if they're relying on second or third hand information. I think it's almost impossible. So I think the Myanmar army are doing their best to cut as much communication as possible, as you know. But there is, you know, certain cases. I believe the August 5th, there was a massacre, August 5th, 6th, with these drones, and there's just a mishmash of stories that are coming out from the various military groups and civilian groups. So it's very difficult unless I would say that there are people on the ground, but you know, at least some of these atrocities are being documented, and then later on, you know, like these forensic outfits can analyze the material. So I think that there is some good to that with the documentation process, but at the same time, for the average person who's viewing these images or this information, they're not double checking anything, and it could be just as bad as when someone like Wiritu is putting Facebook messages on, you know, 2015, 2016.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I guess, when you look at the technology, you know, from a perspective of a human rights person, which I certainly was doing for many years, you know, I mean, the sort of imagery we had from the satellites, which, you know, basically showed what was happening in terms of the devastation. I mean, I remember very clearly in August 2017 that right at the outset, the Myanmar military who denied that anything was being burned. They're like, "What are you talking about? There's nothing being burned in Rakhine State," you know. And you know, we at that time, I was working for Human Rights Watch. We moved very quickly to work with some satellite providers to get imagery, you know, showing before and after for some of these villages. And we had done that previously in the 2012 attacks in June and in October. But it was very clear that then was it was definitely happening. But it took us another week or two after that to say, like, who was actually doing it, because we had to actually then get in contact with people, start getting interviews and finding out what is happening. So, you know, there was this gap of a week. I remember the first press release we brought out, it was it's burning and we're not sure who's doing it. And then gradually, as we got more reporting, as we got more information from our sources and from our researchers, we were able to say, okay, it's definitely the Myanmar military that's doing it. But it took a while. I mean, the other thing is also, I remember very clearly in the August 2016 attacks, which was the sort of preview, you know, where it affected, it was, I think it was four districts where there were attacks. And everybody, all the people fled, they were attacked, and the people fled from their village to other villages that were not attacked because it was retaliation by the military for alleged ARSA attacks against some outposts. And everybody had their mobile phone. So we got incredible images and a lot of information that came out because people took photos of what was happening, then ran, you know, 10 kilometers down the road to stay with their relatives, and then it was able to get out. The Myanmar military junta learned a lesson. And so when they started the atrocities in 2017, in August 2017, if they found you were a Rohingya and you had a mobile phone, they'd shoot you. So everybody started throwing away their mobile phones because they didn't want to get shot.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Sam Wright, club member. I'd like to add my appreciation for your work and the good intentions. I'm wondering if in your pursuits you run across the distinction between hitmen and criminal boss. The talk of Burma being charged in court when China and Russia are providing all the weapons that whenever someone is shot, whenever a Rohingya is driven out, it is done with Russian and Chinese weaponry. I noted that last month the Chinese foreign minister came and spoke with the dictator of Burma. And this was in time in which the UN reports on the burning of people alive and all the atrocities that are being created. And I managed to find 5 articles, 2 written from the mainland China and 3 from outside of China, talking about what was discussed in the discourse between them. And it was the foreign minister of China saying, why are you failing? We give you all these materials, we give you all these weapons. They weren't saying, why are you doing atrocities? They weren't saying, why have you driven the Rohingya out? They're saying, why are you failing? Get your act together. So I was wondering if in your work you find across those who distinguish. I notice you're enthusiastic about going after Burma, but Burma is in some sense a puppet state of these other 2 dictatorships who are supporting the 3rd dictatorship. If you
Well,
and maybe comment on the failure of the press, since you're in a press club, to address the elephants in the room. The elephants in the room are Russia and China, and now more and more India, which has decided that, hey, they'd make a buck there too.
Well, I think, no, you have some good points. And I think that, as I mentioned earlier, the foreign investors, I think they need to reassess what they're doing in the country and who's benefiting from it. And as you're saying, Chinese helicopters, Russian helicopters, Ukrainian helicopters, weapons, yeah, they're all coming from sources that are helping create the problem. I totally understand that. I mean, when we were in the UNICEF tent at the Kutupalong, I believe it was, refugee camp, they were treating young children by getting them to recreate images so that they could understand why they had post-traumatic stress. And they were drawing these big pictures of these helicopters that looked like, you know, Ukrainian or Russian made, and these helicopters had come into the village, and you know, the people had fled. So I totally understand that, you know, there is a lot of fault by the weapons industry. I think that's prevalent across the globe. I don't know how they would be able to stop that, but certainly.
I'm trying to go deeper. Not that they're providing weapons; they're supporting the state.
Yeah.
And you did mention in passing the oil facility that the Chinese have.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're calling that a road and whatever project, and it just happens to be in Rohingya land.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very convenient that there are no Rohingya there now.
Yeah.
In Rohingya land.
Absolutely.
That is, that this isn't just an arms deal.
Mm-hmm.
This is pursuing national interest
Oh,
because it opens
yeah.
a port to the Asian Ocean there, Indian Ocean, and it's getting oil without having to come around through Singapore.
Right, the Malacca Straits, I think it is. There's the straits that they don't have to travel through, they just ship it up to China, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that these countries need to be held to account. I don't know how the legal process, but I definitely think that they are one of the root causes of the conflict. You know, anywhere where there is resources, there is a problem. I don't know if you're, you know, in Kachin State, we have the jade mines, we have the teak wood in Karen State, Shan State tin mines. You know, all of these different resources seem to tend to attract a lot of conflict because people are trying to survive. So I agree 100% that these big businesses need to be held to account, just as these producers of the weapons.
But as you say, state businesses, these are not independent organizations.
Mm-hmm.
These are active parts of the Chinese and Russian government that is doing this. They decide where the weapons go.
Right.
And yes, the rape of the forest and all these other things, where is it going? It's going into China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a good
Thanks.
point.
Yeah. I would just add one quick thing is that, of course, you know, on the issue of the arms industry, I mean, there has been a global effort to try to impose a global arms embargo on Myanmar, but that actually, to really get some sort of binding arrangement, it has to go through the UN Security Council. And of course, it's been China and Russia that have been blocking that kind of action at the UN Security Council at the behest of the Burmese. So I think we have another
They're
question.
blocking it because it's their interest to block it.
Yeah.
They're blocking it because they're supporting this government and the actions that the government are doing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not being reported on in this way.
Yeah.
So it's a failure of reporters too.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
another
thanks.
question?
Good point.
Please identify yourself. Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Somin, in Arabic Mahmoud. I am a Rohingya from northern Rakhine state. Currently, I am living in Thailand. I am one of the victims of 2012 genocidal violence from northern Rakhine state. I have experienced something over there while I was there. So I am not going to that story for the time being, but just two questions I would like to ask journalist, the gentleman leading the organizations, that what I have seen, what I have experienced, what I have learned, what I have studied, the perpetrators against the Rohingyas are not only the Myanmar junta, the active collaborators were the Rakhine extremists, Rakhine mobs, Rakhine gangs, were there. They actively collaborated. All the atrocities happened throughout the decades of the journey, their operations. But most of the journalists, most of the organizations in their reports, in their publications, the second perpetrators or active collaborators of the Rohingya genocidal actors, the Rakhine mentioned less. The Rakhine perpetrators, Rakhine mobs, Rakhine gangs were mentioned very less, what I have noticed. So why was it happening like that? And then second question is, there are narratives what the Myanmar junta as well as these Rakhine collaborators, Rakhine extremists, Rakhine racists have been mentioning against the Rohingya. Their narratives, these are the legacy of the colonial eras. Their characteristics of the Rohingya is very bad. These are the extremists, these are the terrorists, these are the bad guys. They are the illegal intruders to Northern Rakhine state, to Myanmar. They have been destroying, they have been contaminating our society. So such baseless blame they have been putting on the Rohingya throughout the decades, throughout the period of times. So how much do you believe their stories, their stories, make-believe stories or true stories, I don't know. But you may know, you are analyzing, you are going through all those stories, all those analytical reports, all the books, what have been published. You may know, you may come up with the answer to me, to Rohingya community, that how much do you believe their narratives, what they are putting against the Rohingya? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right.
You go ahead.
Your point about the Rakhine militia forces working with the Burmese forces, that makes perfect sense. I think that was occurring quite a bit in Rakhine State in 2012. They were burning, they were attacking the population in particularly in Ong Mengla area in Sittwe, and the government forces were standing by and watching. So there was a lot of complicity between the federal forces and the militia groups, and I think that has a lot to do with orders from above that, they're basically motivated by the business, by the whether it's the land grabs or whatever, and I think that I don't know, there has to be some sense of security that needs to be implemented. I think that has to change this. I don't know what would the answer be, but I agree with you that the Rakhine militia groups were working in hand with the government troops.
Exactly, they are mentioned very less in the report.
Right, and I think that's still occurring, right?
Yeah, it's still occurring. Even recently, the Arkan army chief, he has been declaring to the walls, these are the legacy of the British era, these are our ancestral land, they occupied our land, they are grabbing our land. So very cleverly, very technically, they have been wiping out Rohingya from our land, particularly this northern Rakhine state, which was Bujudang, Maundo, Retidang, Sittwe. So majority we have been living there, thankfully wiping out from those areas.
I think that there's a lot of lies and misconceptions about who owns the land and who doesn't belong there, and I think that a lot of these rumors and these lies are perpetrated by the people in control, and the people at the bottom, the local people, suffer. So I don't know what the solution is unless we can, have better security that is doing the job. I don't know.
Well, what would be good is if we had some more accountability.
accountability.
I mean, that's the fundamental problem. I mean, I remember very clearly working on a Human Rights Watch report called All You Can Do Is Pray that chronicled what happened in October 2012 in areas throughout sort of central South Rakhine, where, you know, there was a coordinated action, and it had been coordinated by the Buddhist Sangha along with some of the militia and others to attack Rohingya settlements. And in that case, you know, some of the police who were Rakhine also, you know, joined in, and that was one of the you know, the real indications that, you know, this was a coalition of security forces and local groups. You know, and we got a lot of actually documented evidence of like what was happening between June 2012, when there was the first attacks that was primarily limited to Sitwe, and then between October 2012. And during those several months, there was active planning going on by Rakhine groups to do this. It was also clear that there was various different Rakhine auxiliaries, or what we were calling them, in the attacks in 2016 and 2017. In fact, you know, they were sort of the cleanup afterwards. So, you know, the army would attack, the Rohingya would flee, the army would take what they wanted and do what they wanted, including raping a lot of women and killing a lot of people. And then after they left, the auxiliaries would come in and like steal things and then burn everything down. And, you know, we saw that same sort of pattern in what you actually saw in 2016, where, you know, they actually caught the auxiliaries coming out of a burning village where, you know, you found they had like empty petrol cans. And they had already taken everything out of the houses because they were they
stealing everything.
Stealing everything and then burning it down.
And the GPS indicators, when we talked to the contacts a few days later, they verified that was the village and it had been cleared out that morning. So they evict the village, they burn it down, they take the property. And in 2012, as a matter of fact, I recall in Chokpu, an area that was a lot of Kaman Muslims were living. And that entire area is now a deep sea port. And if you look at the aerial maps, the satellite maps, they were provided by Human Rights Watch, and also the maps where this new CITIC, this Chinese corporation, is set up these deep sea ports. It almost looks exact. It was very precise in how they burned the place down and just replaced it with this.
Because all the Kaman population was all right along the shore. And so they came and basically burned them out, and there were all the pictures of the Kaman fleeing in their boats to get away from the mobs. And they burned everything. And now it's the deep sea port in Chokpu. Do we have other questions?
The other question is the narration, the narratives, what the Myanmar junta as well as these Rakhine groups, they have been putting against the Rohingya. These are the legacy of colonial era. These are the bad people.
That's what they're saying about the Rohingya.
So why? How much do you believe that? How much credible their claim?
I think there's a timeline actually in the book that traces back the roots of the Rohingya word to the late 1700s, I guess, 1795 or something like that. But certainly they've been around for, hundreds of years, not a few. And, in my country, in Canada, I think you have to be in the country for 3 out of 5 years to qualify for citizenship. And so many of the people in Rakhine State, they've been there for generations. We met a lot of people that had identification cards from their parents, their grandparents, excuse me, and yet they're still being evicted from the area. So I'm not sure how that can be resolved, but it's I think it has some validity about amount of time that they've spent there.
I would say on the issue of Rohingya history and rebutting this issue of what has been claimed by the Burmese military and others, I would recommend you take a look at the work of Greg Constantine. Greg Constantine has been doing an amazing job with a book called, and I'll probably mangle the pronunciation, it's called El Kal, I think, yeah. But anyways, Greg Constantine has been going back and collecting amazing amounts of documentary evidence of the history of the Rohingya, including old photographs, old documents, others, and he's writing it chapter by chapter. He was just here at the Sea Junction about a month ago, and he was up at the Burma Studies Conference at the university, the Chiang Mai University. But I think what needs to be done is some of that kind of information that he has documented needs to be much more widely disseminated. And if that is done, then the only way you fight misinformation is with facts.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, another question, please.
Hello, my name is Jordi. I'm a member. I was a correspondent in India for 10 years and South Asia. And I missed the first minutes of your documentary, so probably I miss out on your explanation on how it all started, what triggered this tragedy that was a Hamas-like terrorist assault, multiple assault. And but I didn't miss your outrageous claim that the Hindus were burning their own villages. I find this claim very outrageous. And I wonder if you would also claim that they committed ritual suicide, because as far as I know, like around 100 of them, around 100 Hindus were slaughtered, chopped. And I couldn't give a pass on this. I found this outrageous. So.
Yeah, we probably didn't dwell on that enough. It's in the book, but basically we were with the government on a 36-hour press tour. And we were presented with IDPs, internally displaced people, from a Hindu village. They were being kept at the school. So we were guided towards a few Hindu witnesses at that time. It's quite a well-known story now. But the one witness, she claimed that ARSA terrorists, Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army terrorists, came into the village, ordered them out, and then these terrorists burnt the village. We're going, okay, and it didn't look right. It looked like it looked like it was staged. And later on in the day, we went to a temple, and they were some of these undercover Burmese police. They're handing out these photos of these purported terrorists burning these huts in this Hindu village. Well, a couple days later, the Burmese reporters had pictures of this woman who was making these claims. She was a apparent witness. And then we looked at these pictures of this lady burning the huts. And it was the same lady, but she had taken her gown and put it around her face. And there was another man standing next to her at this IDP school, and he was also in one of the pictures burning the huts. And I mean they tried, but it wasn't a very good effort, trying to make this fake news basically. So it's 100% that this was a fabricated story. With the case with the Hindu village, I can show you the pictures if you like afterwards. Honest, it's 100% verified. 100%. But this other case that you're mentioning about the Hindu village, that has some merit, I believe, but the investigation relied on all of the witnesses coming over to Bangladesh, the Hindu villagers with this slaughter, and the people that were saying that clothed men with masks were coming into their village and killing them. So after we reported this story about the Hindu IDP center, it was clearly fabricated. As we can show you more pictures if you like, but the situation really didn't hold up for the second investigation. So I mean, there's a lot of fake news, a lot of lies coming out, but this was 100%, and it just basically showed them fabricating the situation. And we did the interviews, we were right there on the ground, so there was no argument there. And certainly we wouldn't want to be condemning any nationality or ethnic group. So
No.
I don't know what else to say.
Well, it sounds like that press tour by the government was one that backfired.
Oh, big time.
Because not
amazing.
only did you expose their fake news Hindu village burning,
Yeah.
but then you saw the real guys burning the village who, like, when you, they basically, who was it? You guys got them to stop the van.
Yes.
And then someone jumped out and ran across the field.
Well,
and,
a few of us,
yeah,
it was a group
yeah, because
effort.
they didn't want to let you go, and these guys,
Right.
so the journalists just jump out of the van and ran across the field to get to the village.
Yeah, they didn't plan it. They didn't plan ahead, I don't think, on that. But yeah, it's unfortunate, and I also understand that a lot of people would be put under pressure. They would either have to do something, or they could be killed, or well, there's nothing worse than that. So that's all I can say about that.
No.
Still outraged, and I heard no explanation if you properly explain how it all unfolded, what triggered.
Well, actually,
the whole tragedy, the terrorist assaults, Hamas style, and I don't know if you explained that.
No, that's...
The only thing is I don't share at all the enthusiasm of this gentleman about the recent coup in Bangladesh. But there is one good thing about Muhammad Yunus. A coup, yeah. Well, that's your point. That's your point of view. From the point of view of most Indians, it was a coup. Of course, and you were supporting Pakistan. But of course, it's India's loss. Clearly, it's India's loss. I'm not Indian, but I see, and everybody knows, this is a huge, terrible loss for India, and it's a huge win for Pakistan. And I think we should expect jihadism and terrorism to be reignited in that border. And maybe that's the whole point. And I consider there is one good thing about Muhammad Yunus, is that he is a Bengali Muslim, and he speaks the same dialect, Chittagong dialect,
Hold on.
Bengalis
If you guys want to have a
Burma.
conversation about India, Pakistan, Bangladesh politics, do it over on the corner, because we got other people who want to ask questions.
Wow. So, excuse me. I thought this was a journalist club, not a propaganda club.
No, it's not, but, look.
I will go to the corner. I'm a journalist. I don't know about
Thank you.
I'm
That's
a journalist, but since you ordered me to go to the corner...
I didn't order you to go. I
Sir.
said, please give up the mic so somebody else can ask a question. Thank you.
I'd love to show you the material, the evidence afterwards.
No.
And I'm not putting the blame on anybody in this case. But this lady, she was lying, and they proved it, and we had pictures.
Well, no, and it was reported by you guys. It was reported by BBC and others. I mean,
but this happens with all groups in all parts of the world. I'm not putting the blame on anybody.
It was clearly debunked. The photos were pretty convincing, and she was actually wearing the same clothes.
Well, she's wearing the same dress, but she put her midsection cover around her face.
Right.
So she was trying,
Okay,
but
so-
I'm sure it was.
Okay.
Yeah,
She was desperate.
Again, just maybe because we after that, because they have been with the press tour, so if they have more time, they will go to talk to her why she forced to do that. Maybe she forced by some authority or someone forced her to do. Maybe just trick her to do that because when she have no idea, but she have to do because it's just chaotic at the time. So
I mean, the whole IDP center was just nothing but confused people. They were all they looked very terrified. This Hindu community, they were genuinely terrified, and I don't think they had any choice.
Well, I mean, they may have been forced to do it. I mean, we don't know what the motivations were, but
exactly.
it was exposed as being fake news. Yeah. And that was the central narrative that was being produced by them, that it wasn't the military or anybody burning them down, but the Rohingya were burning down their own villages to make them appear to be victims, and so that the world community would come and help them. That was the argument from the Burmese military. So, We have any more questions? I do want to ask, actually, I see Jim Pollard's here. So, Jim, do you want to say a few words about your work on editing the book and helping out?
Yes, our editor, Jim Pollard.
Yes, you're late. It's okay.
I was just interested in, I mean, look, for me personally, I know Steve quite well. I think one of his strong attributes is not being scared away when things get tense. There were a couple of times in your pursuit of these stories when things did get dramatic, you know, when you go up on the Thai Malaysian border, you're near the area where the death camps were. Am stays put at the border stone and you take a wander, and then you can hear that there are officials on the other side.
Yeah, well,
so
she's a smart one in the family.
Yeah.
But then there was also the drama in the Rakhine on the, just at the time of the burning of those villages, and you were still putting up a drone and these sort of things, where I would have thought, I've worked with a lot of photographers, I would have thought a lot of them wouldn't necessarily risk it in that case. But you did. You got it up and you got aerial shots and those sorts of things. So anyway,
I mean, there's been far more dangerous places where people have gone, but at the same time, you know, the drone footage I thought was important to get because it, you know, whether it's a Bangladesh refugee camp or it's a village getting burnt down, I think that this footage, and we've submitted some of it to the IIMM. Hopefully it'll help in some of these cases, bring a bit of justice.
Okay. Anyway, I was just saying a few words with our Spanish friend who seems to disagree with the way some of the things have been presented. Either way, it doesn't greatly trouble me, but we have experts on the Rohingya here, one of them straight in front of me, some of the world's leading human rights people hosting and right here. So it's an enormous problem. I just hope we can put enough attention on it that one day they'll get a proper resolution.
Yeah, and also one from Fortify Right, John Quinley is behind there. So if you have any question about Rohingya, so that's here.
Because because Fortify Rights has just finished a report in recent weeks about the massacre, I think in August. Is that correct, John? Yeah. So if anybody has any questions, I recommend he's on top of it here.
Can I just say a little bit? So, like with the Fortify Rights, because when I first with Matthew Smith, so my first time too with Matt, when we go down to the south together, because of Phil connect me to Matt. When Matt just gonna start first time for the Fortify Rights report, so we work together in the south. So until this day, I see a lot of growing up from the Fortify Rights. Thanks, for being here and support and keep doing this job. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Let me just say that there are books available at the back of the room for sale. It's Witness to Genocide. Here's the book. So if you can, 650 baht. It's a cheap, very affordable book. Buy it before they're all gone. Let me just say, before I close, I want to give a shout out to a couple programs that are coming up before later this month. This next Thursday, on the 19th, the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand will be transformed into the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand, where we will have a variety of 11 different truly authentic regional dishes from India, as well as the masala dosa station, prepared by our guest chef, Sada Sawaka, who's the private chef and founder at Navedium. On the 24th, midday program, changes in the Thai automotive industry. So if you're interested about what's happening in this critical industry for Thailand, come on the 24th. That's at 12 noon. And then on the 26th of September, there will be a press conference by a number of Thai NGOs, Freedom Bridge, Building the Bridge for Freedom. It's a press conference talking about Thai political prisoners. If you like what you see here, please join the club. Club members get into all events for free, and they also get 20% off of the food and drink. The pizzas are amazing. We're going to bring in more craft beer. So there's a lot to learn, a lot to enjoy at the FCCT, and I hope we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming, everyone.
Very much.